You wish you had a person.
Yeah. True.
Only if it's leopard skin. You guys are quiet, focused. Right, yeah, I don't think it'll stay that way either.
The lull before the storm.
Remember those little Ziggy, I think it was what it was called, but it used to have the thing like this and you would collect that and put the little hairs. She looks like Ziggy, just looking with her, just her eyes showing.
Could start in about a minute. That could also. I know Roger does, because
I agree.
he's gonna do us a card.
I like the recording.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everyone, and welcome to a regular meeting of the Goldendale City Council. Shelley, would you please take roll call?
Steve Johnston,
Here.
Aaron Wheeler. Absent. Lauren Meeker,
Lauren just texted me that he was running 5 or 10 minutes late, so he'll be able to join when he gets here.
okay, Ellie Casey. Here. Andy Holm,
Here.
Danielle Clevedon,
Here,
Marlon Walling.
Here.
Thanks. Do we have a motion to excuse Theon Wheeler?
I move that we excuse Theon Wheeler.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, thanks. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. This is public comment on agenda topics only. If you're here to comment on the parking on East Collins Street, that'll be the next item on the agenda. We're having a public hearing for that. But if you're here to make a public comment on anything else on the agenda, now would be the time. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, sir.
Any public comment on the agenda today? If not, we'll move on to the public hearing. Nobody has their hand up? Okay, we'll close public comment. Move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the public hearing on the park on East Collins. The council recommended eliminating parking or consider allowing parking on the south side of Collins or allowing parking on the south side of Collins with extended sight distance from the corner of the intersection on East Collins between the Roosevelt intersection and Sanders Way. They also recommend turning the intersection of Roosevelt and Collins into a four-way stop. Well, everybody has a chance to speak to this. You can have 3 minutes apiece to give your opinion. If you want to ask any questions, you're free to do so. When we go to council business, we'll have the parking on East Collins on council business, and that will be the time for the city council to address any concerns or questions that they wish to, that comes up. So is there anybody that would like to make a public comment on the parking on East Collins? Mr. Ekenis.
I would just like to ask why,
Can you, sorry, you'll have to state your name for the record.
really?
You do, it's just for the record.
Stand up,
It doesn't matter if you're standing, because you have a loud voice, we'll be able to hear
eight
you.
oh nine East Collins Drive, that's
And-
my name, Lee E. Iconus.
Yes, sir.
Why? Why has this come up?
We'll definitely be talking about that when we go to council business. Anyone else would like to make a comment? Yes, please, come up and state your name and area residence, please. Or you can sit there if you'd like.
Rosie Luna, 730 East Collins Street. And my question would be, has the hospital asked to ask their employees to use their parking like they should be? And there's some of us that have more than one vehicle in our households, and that's something that I think we need to ask the hospital.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Please state your name and,
Todd Nunn, 714 East Collins, and I do agree with her on the whole hospital situation. There's times where there's parking lots empty or 3/4 empty, and there's nowhere to park the residents. You know, it's. The hospital has parking for a reason, you know, one car here or there, of the hospitals would be a big deal, but when their parking lot's empty and they're all parked, and when they park, they don't park casually to let other people park, they park halfway in the yellow. They don't park to where anybody can parallel park 90% of the time. So I got.
thank you, sir. Anybody else would like to make that?
Well, I'm still on the understanding some things. One, have you actually looked at about the fact that there's a business being run in a residential neighborhood? And that's maybe why there's so many vehicles out there? And then I would also like to invite the police department, if they would, to go by and check and see if all those cars, because there are so many vehicles that look like they're privately owned, are they actually registered and insured? And then I would like to make a suggestion, because I'm not sure how you're running this meeting, but I have been familiar with what has happened in the Ellensburg community when parking is at a premium. Would you like to hear about that?
Absolutely. This is your chance to say your piece.
In and next to the Central Washington College, they have a real difficult time with parking because the students will not want to park where they have to pay. They just want to go out and park in the street. So what they have given the community is what is called RPZ, Residential Permit Zone. And that means that they go to the person and say, whatever's reasonable, you got 2 vehicles parking in front of your home and your driveway, you should probably have a couple, so maybe 3 or 4, but you give them permits. And a sign goes up that basically said at the beginning, when this all started, is that if you don't have a placard in your car, that it's an automatic tow away. My daughter told me that at the time, the first couple weeks, several vehicles get towed, and after the start of the school year, they don't have to deal with it anymore. I think that might be a possibility. Especially if the idea is if you take out the parking on the north side of Collins, I guess you would call it, next to the hospital. And like Rosie said, maybe those people can go park up in the parking lot that's got a lot of vacancy up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is,
Please state your name.
I'm Tim Bradford, I live on Allison Way there.
Okay,
This is a little bit different than what we're talking about, but I think eventually if you move cars, make more room, I think people are gonna go faster through there. And now you've got people that at times are going 60 miles an hour through there. And it wasn't like that a couple of years ago until we had a 25-mile-an-hour sign each way and then an electric sign that told you your speed. And it worked pretty good, and I would like to know why that was ever taken out. There's no signs there now, so I guess people just think they can go 55. But I mean, you're buttoned up at a school zone. And there's I think there's still a sign, a speed sign at the top of the hill.
Mhm.
But I haven't been up there, so I'm aware of that, but I'm kind of against anything that's gonna allow people to go faster there. It's not patrol, and at least not that I ever see. And I would like to know why they were ever moved to begin with. I mean, there's gotta be a work order on that or something, right? I mean, they were put in, and so why did we move it?
I definitely agree with him on the speeding thing.
Mr. Sifrinius, do you have your hand up, sir? Please state your name.
Mark Sigfriends, 708 East Collins. I live 50 feet from the end of the intersection. It's a farm to market route. If you put a stop sign there, it's just gonna be twice as noisy as it already is. Because those trucks coming downhill will have to use their jake brakes to slow down.
They can't. There's a sign at the top of the hill.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not supposed to.
yeah, well, they're walking.
They do it anyway.
Yeah, they do it anyway, but anyway, coming down to the stop signs, from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill, if they'd have to stop, it would just make more noise than there already is. And, they're right about the people from the hospital parking there, they usually park in front of my house every day. We have a special pad for it there for my wheelchair van. And so, if I need to get out early, I've got to get up early and move my car out to the front because I usually put it in the driveway. Because someone will park there. So the hospital to, make their people park where they're supposed to. And, no stop sign. I've lived there 32 years, give or take, and there's never been an accident there that I know of. I don't remember unless I was not home when it happened.
There was a pretty severe one there last year.
Was there?
Yeah,
Okay,
several blindsided.
mostly probably coming from the south going north, because that stop sign is somewhat hidden by the trees that are along the side of the road.
And also the winter time coming from north to south, coming down that hill,
Yes,
people failed to stop and flag right there. So
right. So, but for the amount of cars that go through there, it's fairly safe. But it's just that, it would be noisier, it would be really noisy, I mean, and the farmers coming down the hill will probably be yelling at the city council as soon as the stop signs go up, so. You know, if you want to do that, it's fine, no, but that's just my portion of it, so, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir, please.
It's kind of quandary because that is a truck route through there, and a lot of times the trucks will be over the line, center line. Particularly coming down, even coming up, and so I understand we need to do something about room on there. The only left where I say the quandary is that on the left hand or on the south side, as they were saying, we don't have parking. If you take that away, we have one little driveway. And so you can't have people over, deliveries are a problem. And so I guess where I'm leaning is south side, fine, or excuse me, north side, fine. Leave that and make more space, have the hospital people parked over and where they have the lot. And then leave some parking on the south side for the residents that live along there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Well, let's get someone that hasn't spoken yet and we can come back to you, Todd. Yes, please state your name and area. residence.
I agree with what everybody has said, and several people have already talked about, prime parking. We really wouldn't have an issue about parking if the hospital people and the clinic workers parked in their own parking lot. And as far as I'd like to find out if this is an aesthetic issue, is it a safety issue? People just don't want to look or see what they see, or is it, because as far as safety, between Roosevelt and higher up, going up Collins, we've never had an issue as far as any accident other than Mark. But I just think that this has really come more as an aesthetic thing. I think people don't like what they see, and it's none of their business. We have parking for people who need to come. We have a lot of disabled people that come to our home. My sister, or other people, elderly people, they would have to walk quite a distance to get to our house just to visit. And to have no parking in front of the house is going to be really inconsiderate and inconvenient. And as far as noise, the trucks are gonna make a lot of noise, they already do, but I really considered that this is not really a safety issue as far as I can see, because it may be in somebody else's eyes.
Thank you. Yes, sir, please state your name. You can come to the podium or stand where you are.
Yeah, Chase Alden, I live at 718 East Collins. Yeah, so parking, if it's a safety issue, I think the bigger safety issue is people flying through there. The speed issue has gotten vastly out of hand as opposed to the parking. I mean, it's every night, like on my bedroom faces the thing, and you just see like a red flash, especially late at night, they're just bombing out of town. So as far as the noise and everything else, the stop sign was gonna do, the stop sign I'm actually for, because it might, slow them down a little bit just in front of my house at least, because I got a couple little kids. And then as far as the parking issue, it's just me and my wife that drive, but we have 2 young kids, and I've already had to kind of try to build an impromptu parking spot for my pickup so I can get off the road to leave that parking open. But, at some point, my kids are gonna drive, things like that. Eliminating parking in front of a residential area, kind of like she said, it just seems pretty inconsiderate, and it's gonna dramatically impact our day-to-day life. At the end of the day, if we just eliminated the north side, made the hospital people park, now we have all the, room in the world for the rock trucks, and it wouldn't impact, the residents that live there.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Mr. Hocker, please state your name.
I'm trying to live at Road Drive, which is off Allison, which is up here. I've thought about this, and there's been the stop signs, 4-way stop. I think I'm pretty much in agreement, although I hear what you're saying about the extra noise. And I've seen people, and I try to avoid coming down Collins. One reason is because of the school, another reason, so many people blow one or other of these stop signs. And I'm wondering I'm thinking it would be a lot safer if we all had to stop there, at least those of us that stopped would be able to look out for those that didn't. Also, but then on the other hand, and I'm not picking on you, Todd, it was somebody else. There's a bunch of rigs parked here. I'm on the hospital board, so I'm gonna try not to bring up the hospital people. I can say things for or against that, but there's just rigs parked here. I stopped here, looked east, did not see anybody, although there's a bunch of cars all along here, a bunch of vehicles all along here blocking my line of sight. Looked out here, nobody, so that was easy. Looked back, still didn't see any movement, pulled out there right in front of a car that was hidden in behind. I see that as one thing, and I'm pretty much in favor of a 4-way stop here, as much as I hate to have another stop sign. But just, I don't want to be the one getting in a wreck. But I would also like to ask, if you're thinking about stopping, parking along here, why stop here? The big problems are out here, and especially on this corner.
especially the longer vehicles and the tracking, they need more room to get around this corner. The street doesn't get any wider out here. If you're not gonna allow parking on one side or both sides of the road here, I would sure advocate that it goes all the way out. My understanding, the city limit line is the Highway 97 overpass. Yeah, there's one little block up here, wouldn't be a big deal, but just make it easy and do it the whole way. Just for the people that wanna complain about the hospital, I saw a city maintenance truck parked over here in the city parking lot all weekend, so, you know, works both ways. Anyway, I much as I hate to, I think it makes sense to have a four-way stop.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not too sure on that.
Anybody else? Mr. Ikennis?
One thing I wanted to add, it was the last couple of weeks when the parking got full down there, it started etching up our way, up towards Elm Street. And if you do any kind of painting and those people are gonna look and say, well, do I go back there to the back part and park? Or do I go a block and a half up here and park? So the problem will go from one to a little, in Ellensburg, that's what they did. They gave everybody that was in one block, they said, oh, no, the college kid said, I don't wanna pay for anything, I'm lazy. Well, the people that are gonna go to the hospital are gonna say the same thing. They're gonna say, I don't wanna walk all the way to the back and then come all the way to the front. I'm gonna go park up part way. And I've got vehicles, you know, when I have a van and cars out in front of my house that I don't know who they are, I kind of look at them and, you know, my kids say, well, go take a picture of them just in case something happens. And I've been doing that. And of course, we get trucks and trailers and vehicles that park up there too, when they can't park their long rigs down there by the hospital. So it's not gonna be just a problem in just from that street to that street. It's gonna start working its way up or working its way down.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am,
My
please.
name is Betty Aparicio, and I live on the corner right here on Collins and Elm Drive. And I feel that if you don't have anybody, if no one can park here, these people, hospital and whoever, they're gonna start coming this way. And then people that are going this way are not gonna be able to see right there. Kids cross through, they're coming from the park to go this way all day long. So I have a feeling that those rigs will make their way and the hospital staff will come up this way rather than go back there and walk this way. So just wanted you guys to be aware that that little curve right there with a lot of cars in here, you'll have problems there. People might be able to see. So I know I can't sometimes when people park there. So I mind that sign here. It'll slow people down. I see those trucks coming all day long. I'm retired. I sit there and look. So yeah, they need to slow down.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tim Bradford on Allison Way. If you put a stop sign down there, the trucks full of gravel are gonna be stopping there. And then you're gonna be pouring pollution and noise pollution into the street as they go through their gears again. So, yeah, I'm not so big on the four-way stop sign thing. I drove truck, I'm a retired teacher, and it's a lot to get going again after you stop with a heavy load like those guys are carrying. Not that I don't think there should be another truck route. God forbid.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Please, your name.
I live on Court Street. Anyway, as a resident of Golden Dale, I would just like to say, because I'm a defensive driver, I've avoided a number of, hitting people in the back or hitting on the side and stuff that I think most of us residents. So a four-way stop, and I was raised here, And trucks, if they're not gonna stop there, you know, they have to stop at Court Street. They have to stop at the end of the street anyway when they come to Columbus, so they know how to stop. It's not like they can't stop a big truck. I mean, let's be real about that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Did Todd have another
I
question?
guess the question I have, because if you go back far enough in history, that was the way into town from the Columbia River before they put in 97. Is that a designated truck route? Is there rules and regulations against what you can do on the, even though it was an older street? But that was a main route into town from the south. When the road used to come up through the buttes and stuff before it got to what's now Collins Street.
Thank you, sir. Todd, did you have something else?
And as far as the comment made about the business and residential area, all the vehicles are 100% legal. The businesses ran. I leave at 5 o'clock every morning. When I get back, there's nowhere to park, and yes, I do have to park up the street sometimes. Until the spot opens up after 5 o'clock and I park. I got $15,000 worth of tools in my work truck. I like to park right across the street from my house. You know, there's times where I park somewhere else to let people park there. Or I've arranged with neighbors to, if they have something going on, I'll park somewhere else so they have room for something going on. You know, I try to work with my neighbors. You know, yes, I do have a work truck and trailer at my house 99% of the time, but you know what, it's 100% legal ran business. Everything there is legal, licensed, insured, and tagged. That's all I gotta say with that.
Thank you, Todd. Yes, sir.
I'll add another pat on the back to Todd there. If you look a lot of times, and width is the problem on that street, he's either parked right at the curb or he's sometimes even on top of the curb, just to try not to get out in the street so far. So many of his equipment is 8 feet wide, which is the standard width that you can be, so, you know, give Todd a little bit of credit for trying.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody on the line that has their hand up? I don't want to ignore them. Okay. Anybody else here in the audience that would like to make a comment? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to add that there's only really 3 residents there, or 4 at the most, that is going to be affected. And I think that we should take in consideration the people that are living there. They take care of their homes, they take care of their yards, they pay their taxes, and we've always had a little parking on the street. I just hate to see things have to change to the point where it's inconvenient for everybody, but especially the 4 people that are living in just that one section. It really doesn't affect further up because it was right in front of our house that you guys are gonna take the parking away. But just remember that there's a lot of people that really do need to park close to.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we will now close public comment, the public hearing. And move on to the next item, and that's the agenda. We get approval of the agenda with amendment under H5 and the consent agenda.
I move to accept the agenda and consent agenda with the inclusion of number 5 under H as presented.
Oh, sorry. There's a motion and a second to approve the agenda and the consent agenda with the amendments. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's department reports. And let's start over here with Fire Chief Noah Holm.
Thanks, Mayor. So our new decals on it right now. And so hopefully in the next couple weeks, we'll have those on. Also, just like Mylan was saying, it's raining outside. It's beautiful weather as well, grass is growing, so wildland season, we're getting up to that, a lot of training going on for that kind of stuff, so. That's all I got.
Thank you, Noah. Police Chief Mike Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we've had in the month of March, we had 268 calls. We were down 2 calls from last month, so we're actually decreasing. But our arrests were up. We doubled the arrests. We had 12 arrests in the month of March versus 6 in the month prior. For some reason, we're up 46 calls for suspicious activity. And so we've kind of been just having some weird activity around town, people kind of prowling around, not necessarily committing crimes, but people calling in stuff, which is good for citizens calling in complaints. We don't get calls in, we don't know what's going on, so that's good. So we're still just going strong and just staying average of what we've been doing all year. So.
Thank you, Chief. City Administrator Sandy Wells.
Just for information, on the southwest side of town, there's around 24 streetlights that went out, all in one group. And so we checked the program that we have with the streetlights. It doesn't, looks like those are all still working correctly. So we think it might have been maybe a power surge or something that we had when there was lightning. So we're checking with the PUD and we're working on that to get that resolved. So if anybody says anything about the streetlights being out, we are currently working on that.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, great. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. And under council business, parking on East Collins. We just had the public hearing to discuss the parking options. Now will be the time for the city council to address any questions that came up in the public hearing and present your side. And then after that, we'll have a motion to either take that back to the Public Works Committee to provide recommendations, or whatever motion the council would like to make to move this matter along. And I'll open this up to the city council.
So my first comments are, well, I have a lot to say, but I'll try to sum it up. I don't agree with taking the park away. I do not agree with that. It's kind of like what I mentioned when they put 18th Street out there and all those homes out there. There's no parking on those streets. No one can stop by and visit, or you can't have a birthday party, Christmas party, whatever. I don't agree with taking parking away. I feel the safest thing is to put the 4-way stop in and go from there. More things need to be said. I'm actually kind of disappointed the hospital's not here to discuss this with us. To me, it sounds like a big part of the problem is because of their employees, and I think that they should address that. That's what another idea is on the north side, do no parking from 8 AM to 5 PM. And then that could help alleviate some of that problem. So.
Thanks, Andy. Anyone else? Mylan.
Oh, well, thank you, Mayor. Well, anyway, on the north side, are they really hospital employees, or are they, is that an office right there? Or just people come by and go in for business? Is that
yeah,
where the old clinic used to be, but it's used for a business office. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wellness and therapy.
Okay, but what I'm asking is, maybe these people are not employees and they just need a place to park. I mean, that was one thought I have. Personally, I like the idea of no parking on the north side. The 4-way stop sign, that could be debated. And also, Chief, do we have any more of those reader boards? I mean, portable out there, we could sit out there for a while to kind of slow the traffic down.
We don't. That was a request I made last council meeting about purchasing some. We talked to the ordinance or the budgeting committee, and that's gonna be presented to you guys with that option. And so that's part of the stop going in for the school zones. Before we stop there, because of the speed traffic coming into a school zone, is why I propose a 4-way stop, because of danger to the children in the school zones that need to be slowed down.
Would you put one up farther east, up kind of before you get to the bridge?
Right now, I put in for 4 or 4 signs.
Okay,
And so if that gets approved by you guys, those 4 signs, 2 will go on Collins right in the actual school zones. So it would be on the other side, not up that street.
okay. Yeah, okay, well, that's all I have right now, Mayor.
Thanks, Miles.
So I agree, mostly with everything that Andy said, except for I would like to add that, I think that having the placards for the households would be good. However, that still doesn't account, unless there's a way to do it, account for their visitors, and how would the cops know if they were visitors or not? So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of things to consider, but I think that the one thing is we shouldn't take parking away. What I think should happen is if there's parking that's illegal there for line of sight, then it should be specifically marked, monitored, and ensured that people are safe there. Because, I mean, I've only lived here about 6 years, and I've almost been hit probably, because I do go up Roosevelt quite a bit. I've been almost hit at least 6 times just going up there. And so, it's not safe. We know that. So they parked correctly within the limits? I don't know. That's a question that I can tell you that sometimes when I've gone there, I know that they're too close to the curb, they're too close to the crosswalk. They're parked in front of driveways and things like that, which are not legal. But is it being enforced? And who's doing that? Is it the residents or is it the hospital? I really would have liked the hospital also to be here so that we can ask some of those questions. Probably though, it's not all the hospital employees, but also the patients or people that just have appointments, I'm guessing. So I think that maybe just the, 9 to 5, like you said, Andy, not parking on that side of the street, but to take it away from in front of the south side of Collins, I don't think is the right idea. A 4-way stop, I do think would be helpful. But that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Anybody else? Steve?
This whole subject has come about over safety, simple and pure, and it's called line of sight. If anybody has been to the hospital and come on to Collins, coming home, come down out of there and try to get onto Collins, and there's cars all along, and even that clinic, whatever it is there, right by the intersection, those cars are parked bumper to bumper. But by the time you can see if a vehicle is coming, you're already out in the street. It's that bad on that north side. You can't argue that. The hospital needs to be put on notice in regards to this. It is unfortunate they're not here. They should be, because I agree. I think they are as involved as anybody. And I drive up there a lot myself. In fact, now I'm going to the hospital more than I ever have, unfortunately. But there is ample parking there. I see empty spaces there in that parking area from the intersection all the way down. But during the day, any time of the day, the street is chock full. And here's all kinds of empty spaces in there. So, and as far as educating the residents, and all that, that's not our purpose here. And change isn't always comfortable. I remember, a lot of you folks may remember when we made a 4-way stop at the other intersection down there. Everybody came unglued. We've gotten used to it, and it was for the same reason, for safety. And that's what this is for. The noise, I share your agony. I live on Northeast High Street, and it's not a farm to market. And there is trucks during the summer on a regular basis. And the speed is out of control also. So, this is not an isolated situation by any means. It's one that has been evolving for a while, and we have felt that it's necessary to address it. I think we're gonna give it a try and see how it works out, but I think we're gonna be moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Steve. Yes, Lauren.
Yeah, change is never easy, and I think it's a hard position for the council because you have to make a decision for the good and safety of many that has some negative impact on a few. But of course, the public hearing was to not come to a conclusion tonight, in my opinion, was to get the input from the community, take the input back. Think about it and come up with some possible solutions to address increasing safety with having minimal impact to the residents. And so I would move that we take this back to, I think it'd be the ordinance committee or public works. Public Works Committee, with all the input that we received tonight, have some further discussion. And see where that goes from there.
That's your motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to take this matter back to the Public Works Committee. Any further comment?
I just have one comment. I would really like to have some input from the hospital on what their possible solutions on having the employees not park in those areas. Also, in that meeting with Public Works.
We could solicit some input, but honestly, if there's public parking available, then that public parking is available to any member of the public, which includes hospital employees. So the only really way to mitigate that is to limit the parking to local residents or a certain time frame. But you can't have public parking available to anybody except if you work at the hospital, you can't park here. There's just no way to implement that.
Anyone else? We have a motion and a second on the table to take this back to the Public Works Committee. Any further comment? Steve?
I'm ready to make a motion.
We have a motion.
I know
We have a motion and a second.
Let's go with it.
Okay. We're hearing no more comment. We have a motion to take this back to the Public Works Committee and work on it some more. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. We'll take that back to the Public Works Committee with all of the public comment we have received, and we'll bring this back to council at a future date. Thank you everyone for showing up.
I have one more thing. I know I'm probably breaking a dozen rules, but is there any way that I can get paperwork on why the signs were removed in the first place up the street on Collins?
Those signs broke and the system was outdated and the computer system they used for those doesn't work anymore and we can't get those fixed, so they have to order new ones.
Okay, but there were
And
no,
they're super expensive, so.
there
it's why
was
they
no
replaced them.
electric.
There was some
and two.
electrical issue with both of those signs,
There were two of them
right?
that weren't electric
Well, those
and
ones that
one that
were,
was.
yeah, my understanding from Public Works was that sign broke, which is why it was removed. That's what I was told.
I don't know how you break a cardboard sign or a wood sign, but
Not the wood sign, but the electric one.
yeah, there were two wood signs.
I
So I'm trying to say.
don't know the cardboard ones. I know they took those down and they put the electric ones up, but I'll find out
Yeah,
about
there
the
was
others.
one electric one up that worked great. But it was, you're right, it did have some trouble.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. And that's the hearing examiner services contract. Attached is the hearing examiner services contract. We went out to bid and received one contract back. The contract was reviewed by our attorney and his recommendation was that this was a fair contract. They have a flat rate for specified permits and applications plus an hourly rate for appeals. Is there a motion or?
I move to authorize the mayor to execute a professional services contract with Laminar Law, PLLC for hearing examiner services for the period April 1, 2025 to December 31st, 2025.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment? Yes, Steve.
Is this, having this hearing examiner on board, is that going to usurp or hopefully we don't overuse it in some instances where we can take care of the issue without paying $250 an hour for something. It's in the language as far as our ability to mitigate certain, in fact, quite a number of issues that we deal with. So that's the only,
I asked that question also earlier before the meeting, and Sandy had a very good reply. You want to repeat what
So
you said?
doesn't eliminate the council as far as decisions that you guys already made. This eliminates the Board of Adjustments for single family residential variances, conditional use permits, subdivisions. They review those instead of the Board of Adjustments.
so in other words, what issue in particular, this, people living in RVs.
Those are.
That's a house, right?
That one is for the Board of Adjustments for code enforcement cases. And that's still, we didn't change that one. Code enforcement still goes through the Board of Adjustment and then they appeal to you already.
But I thought
That
this-
didn't change.
I thought this eliminates the board.
It doesn't eliminate it in all instances. We just did it for subdivisions and those types of requests. So we did not touch the code enforcement yet. We could do that at a later date. We wanted to start to see how it worked, see how it works for subdivisions and conditional uses. And then we could do it at other avenues as other cities have done. But right now, we're just starting with those. Because those only meet 4 or 5 times a year at max. Versus the conditional uses, or the code enforcement cases, which could be quite more. So we just haven't addressed that part yet. So
Okay.
they would still go to the citizen review board. They go to citizen review board for any time that somebody wants for them to make the decision. And then when they appeal that, it goes back to you. So that part didn't change. That's still the same.
Well, now you mentioned the citizen review board. I know we've discussed that situation before too. It's kind of getting off track here just a little bit, but I think we should have more discussion regarding that. We've got too many, personally, I think, we have too many irons in the fire, too many fingers in the pot here. When we have to make a decision on something. When ultimately it is our obligation and our authority. And anyway, I'm all right with giving this a trial run, put our toe in the water and see how it goes. So.
Yes, Laura.
From my understanding, the hearing examiner isn't making subjective opinions. They're reviewing the law, reviewing the requirements and making decisions based on what's in our ordinances. So if there was an issue that came out that we felt differently about it, we couldn't necessarily do something different about it because they're just reviewing based on existing law.
That's it.
And I wonder if there might be some potential for savings in staff time, city staff time that it takes to wrangle board members of the board and get them together and take notes and document all that versus just getting it, hopefully what's a relatively quick legal opinion. So it'd be great to see how this goes, and maybe that comes to do with the citizens review board too down the line.
Thanks.
That is correct. It does say down on staff time because it's a little bit less of paperwork that we have to submit them. They're all by Zoom. So they won't be here in person. Otherwise, that's a more cost because they come from, I think it's Olympia. But they do this for other cities as well.
Sure, but I did notice in here that the hearing examiner is going to call upon city staff for data.
Yes, we'll still make up their packet of what they need to have to make the decision as far as what codes are in there. But they'll have all our city codes plus a law
Okay.
because they are attorneys. So it takes out the human emotion of, well, I live in that neighborhood. It's just also, it's really hard to find people to be on those boards. I know we're down, I think, 1 or 2 spots there now. It's really hard to find, because unless somebody has a stake in it, they usually don't want to be on those kind of boards. So it's been growing problem of trying to find people that stay in town and that are willing to be sitting on those committees, even though they only meet a few times a year.
Is the Board of Adjustment mandated by the state or by RCWs.
There is an RCW on it, but it's not, we can go to a hearing examiner for all of those things if we really wanted to. Doesn't have to have that board. My understanding, I have to ask Quinn for that to be for certain, but my understanding is we can use a hearing examiner or have a committee.
Danielle.
I was just gonna say, when this was initially brought up to us, I recall also you saying that it would be easier for, because the emotion is out of it, for appeals and things like that to happen as well. So it would basically, it would kind of keep it cleaner for us in the long run, which would keep money down in the long run. So I just wanted to state that as well.
Anyone else? We have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to execute a professional services contract with Laminar Law for the hearing examiner services. Unless there's any further comment, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes, thank you. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Invite Dustin Conroy up to the podium. This is the 2025 pavement preservation project.
Yes, so we had been opening almost on March 13th, almost 3 weeks ago, for the chip seal project. There were 7 bids that were submitted. Tomer Construction Company was bid. And base bid plus all the additives came up to $722,533.60. And I recommend that you guys, the city, award the contract to Tomer Construction in that amount.
So that's H4, we're on H3, which is the water line. But we
Sorry,
can skip to H4 and then come back to H4.
okay. I skipped H3. I'm sorry about that.
You want me to?
Let's continue with H4 and then we'll go back to H3. That was,
And so my recommendation for the chip seal project is to award the contract to Tomer Construction Company. In that amount, $722,533.60. There might be an opportunity to add some, one more street to that. The city's grant was roughly $1 million. That we received from TIB. And so we've had conversations with TIB. They recommend we go ahead and award it this. If the project goes well, we may be able to add one more street in the middle of it, to get up to that amount.
cool.
I just have a quick question, and it's gonna be for the next one also, so it's for both. So the references, when you called their references, did they say anything positive, or did they just say that they finished the job?
So Tomer actually, on theirs, had submitted, a large number of references. And, I wouldn't say they were necessarily positive, but all of them said they completed the job on time, on budget. So a little bit different than last time.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my quick question there was, have you worked with them before?
I have not.
Okay.
But they did, in talking with TIB, they did complete, I think, 4 or 5 of these projects last year for TIB as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is
Oh,
the
okay.
first.
Yeah.
For sure. Honestly, I think they submitted, like 8 pages of previous projects over the last 3 years that are all submitted.
Okay.
Ancillary question, doesn't really pertain necessarily to wording these, but before I get the phone calls and text, does either one of these contracts cover the paving of Northwest High Street?
So the chip is chip seal of Northwest High Street. And so, yes, Northwest High Street is included in and so it's a pulverization and a chip seal of Northwest High Street.
Thank you, Dustin.
You see,
How about Pine Street?
Pine Street's included as well as.
Both of those streets are gonna put it to the test.
So that's what, I thought as well. We met with a couple of the contractors before the bid and they had no concerns over it.
They looked at it?
Yeah, yep. So, it's what they do every day. They didn't have concerns.
Okay.
Good.
I live in the corner.
Yeah.
Drag my lawn chair
We'll-
up there.
Invite us over for popcorn.
Yeah, right.
As is Lauren.
Well, thanks. Is there a motion to award the 2025 pavement preservation project?
I move to award the 2025 pavement preservation project to Tomer Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $722,533.60.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thanks. We'll go back to H3 now. Thanks, Dustin. That's the North Phase Water Line Improvement Project.
And so, that project bid opening was on March 19th. We received, 5 bids for that project. Ajax Northwest provided the lowest bid. They're from the White Salmon, Houston area, so they're somewhat local. Their bid bond attached and all addenda were received. We met with Doug. They're a little bit over our total amount for, the one amount, Public Works Trust Fund
Yeah.
Committee amount. We believe that with the city funds that they have, in the water budget, there's enough money to do the entire project. As that project goes along, if something comes up and, something's more expensive than we think, we may have to remove, one portion of this project. But it's recommended that we award the total amount in $1,384,404.35 to Ajax Northwest. And to answer your question, yes, they did receive positive responses on.
Awesome.
On
Thank you.
Oh, but
And is this funding already secured? It's not relying on future Public Works Trust Fund?
yeah, it's already fully secured.
Thank you.
how much over, you said it go, the bid's a little bit over, like how much?
It's about $210,000, over what is currently the loan amount.
Okay.
But we did add it, I think there was one additional water line added to this from when we went and got the loan. So there's some trade-off there too, but.
And also, Dustin, they're picking up part of the project that was left undone from last year.
Yes, they're picking up Mill Street and, North Columbus and Northeast High.
Yeah.
So it includes all of that as well. And this project pretty much, to my knowledge, I think there's only one additional small portion of pipe that's either concrete, asbestos or steel left in the city system, which is pretty amazing. Everything else will be PVC. You're the only city that I know that's anywhere even close to that.
Wonderful.
Besides your main transmission line coming in, but.
Yeah.
Within the city distribution area. Very good.
Yes.
It's my understanding there's still some repairs to be done to the water meters on Northwest High Street, and is that not part of this?
That is not part of that. That, Public Works will take, in our discussions, we'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Is there a motion?
I move to award the 2025 Phase 2 of the Waterline Improvement Project to Ajax Northwest in the amount of $1,384,404.35.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone.
And just a quick update, I know that the Ajax Northwest is excited to get started, so we will send these contracts out to them as soon as we receive their performance bonds and everything. We'll do the notice to proceed and get theirs started. They want to get started by June 1st if possible, or actually, sorry, May 1st if possible. And then the basic preservation, we have to wait for warmer weather, so that's gonna be probably middle of June 15th or something. There's a window there where that'll go. So it'll be a little while before you see it on Pine Street, but it'll be later this summer when the weather gets warmer.
Thank you, Dustin.
And just for clarification, so Fiona is on the line now, but she doesn't have very good internet. So with that vote, she did do a thumbs up, so
Okay,
just so it's on the record that she also was in favor.
okay.
Timeline on the street preservation project.
They have 30 days, working days, from when they get started to when they have to be done, except there will be ones, because they have to come back and do some sweeping once it's all done, so we'll hold their days, but they'll have it all done within 30 days.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, Lauren.
Just ask that the city staff work with the contractor and with Dustin to provide advance notice to residents so they can be better prepared than what we experienced last year.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dustin. Okay, great. We'll move on to the next item and that's the proclamation for National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. If I can get a motion, I'll go ahead and read that proclamation.
I so move, Mayor.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the week of April 13th to the 19th, National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, and authorize the mayor to assign the presented proclamation recognizing National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Any discussion?
I just want to mention that, working up there, it's an incredible responsibility to do what they do, and I think we should all make an effort to go up there and see them.
And I forwarded an invitation to all the counselors that Jeff King asked me to, inviting you to a barbecue for the telecommunicators appreciation
And where's that gonna be at?
up at the 911 call center.
Oh, right there.
Yeah,
And that's on the 11th?
This Friday?
This Friday.
Yep.
Yeah, that's Friday. Yeah, right. Okay. I have it marked down on my calendar. So.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so you authorize me to read this proclamation and enter it into the record. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of emergency personnel is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our emergency responders is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Klickitat County Emergency Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our emergency responders by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them critical information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety communications officers of the Klickitat County Department of Emergency Management have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each communications officer has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor David Jones of the City of Goldendale, by the virtue of the authority vested in me by the laws of the City of Goldendale and Washington State, do hereby proclaim April 13th through the 19th to be Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our citizens safe. Thanks. Much appreciate the emergency telecommunicators. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda under resolutions, under tourism funding. The event committee has met with the applicants for the award of tourism dollars. The application totaled $5,000. The committee gave a recommendation to the council on March 3rd for approval. The recommendation of the committee was to fund the request in the amount of $5,000 in accordance with Exhibit A. And this is the resolution for the tourism funding for the car show.
I move to approve resolution 744 authorizing the funding for tourism event for the 2025 under $5,000.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to ordinances. Ordinance number 1541, the hearing examiner. Ordinance 1541 will eliminate the Board of Adjustments and create the Office of Hearing Examiner. It establishes qualifications for the position, proving for the appointment of a suitable person to the position, defining the duties of the position, providing procedures for the hearings of the hearing examiner, and repealing any conflicting ordinance.
I move to accept ordinance number 1541, eliminating the Board of Adjustment and creating the office of the hearing examiner. And at this time, I would like to waive the second reading.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to accept ordinance 1541 and waive the second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great, thanks. So we'll move on to the next item. And that is ordinance number 1545, amending the water ordinance. The city of Golden staff has identified certain areas in chapter 13.04 of the Golden Municipal Code and desires to correct the errors. The information was provided to you in the package.
I move to accept ordinance number 1545, amending and correcting chapter 13.04 water supply system of the Goldendale Municipal Code for its first reading and waive the second reading.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to accept ordinance 1545 and waive the second reading. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move on to ordinance 1546.
Well, Mayor, could I just go ahead and make the motion that we, the same as, it's 1545, can we do that?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I so move.
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to accept ordinance 1546, amending and correct chapter 13.08 sewer disposal systems and to waive the second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, on favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you, everyone.
Mary Jo, I have a
Oh, yes.
topic on related to both of those issues, and this is something that came up prior to COVID, and it just reminded me of it. And I would just make a motion that the ordinance committee review these two ordinances and consider changes to support development. My understanding is that there's some clauses in there that make the development for large scale projects like we have up here on, where is that?
18th
Street. It's really cost prohibitive the way our water metering structure is set up as well as our sewer. So, and maybe that's change that we don't incur those costs until first occupancy or something like that. But anyway, the motion is simply that the ordinance committee review the ordinances for any language that is cost prohibitive to development.
Would we like to schedule an ordinance committee meeting?
Sure.
Okay, ordinance committee.
I'll retract my motion and we'll just go ahead and talk about it. Sorry.
Okay,
Just for the water and the sewer
Water and
ordinances?
sewer.
Okay.
okay, when would be a good time, ordinance committee?
I am available Tuesday, Thursday this week, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week.
Mylan?
Well, let's see, what, we got that, there's something on the 10th. It seemed like there's something on the 9th.
The 9th is the events committee.
Oh, yes. 9th is the events committee.
Yeah,
Tuesday, the 15th.
Tuesday the 15th,
Oh, okay, yeah.
Tuesday the 15th. I'm, Ellie,
I'm good with 8:30, or not 8:30, 5:30.
5:30.
Wow.
That's too early for me.
5:30? 5:30.
Once I accept the red line version of these two, do you want me to resend you both of those ordinances?
Yes, that'd be easier.
Okay. I will email it to you.
Okay, Tuesday, the 15th at 5:30 ordinance committee.
I got, wait, there's something. Oh, no, that's something in Seattle. We'll go over that.
Okay.
So we're good for Tuesday, the 15th at 5:30, Monday?
Yes, right, yes.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's report of officers. And let's start here with Steve Johnston.
Tonight, except I would like to schedule that public works meeting as soon as possible, so we can wrap this up.
Okay.
That'd be good to have Chief Smith there for that. If you're available.
Okay. Chief Smith, when was good for Public Works Committee? Lauren, Steve, Chief Smith, and Theone. If she's still on the line.
She is, I think she can type, but she can't. She might be able to speak. She doesn't have video.
If it helps, we can, if we want to coordinate with Theone, I can schedule that over an email between everyone. Okay.
And I'm fairly flexible. I mean, Lauren won't do 9 to 5 here, so I can respect them.
It depends on the day and, yeah.
Okay. I'll be contacting the Public Works Committee and Chief Smith via email for that meeting. Thank you.
And I don't know if Doug should be there or not. They're gonna have to paint some curbs. I mean, that just kind of,
He'll be out all of this week and we'll see about next week.
yeah, I don't know if it's that necessary.
We'll see.
Anyway, sooner the better.
Okay. Great.
That's it.
Okay. And Theone, is she on there?
She said, can't respond, but she said a thumbs up, so I assume an email
Okay.
will work for setting up that.
Okay, great. Lauren.
I want to thank all the community members that came in this evening and they called me, of course, the last couple of weeks as I saw this information coming out. That input really helps us out as we make our decisions and try and find a way that we can increase safety with having as little minimal impact on the residents as possible. No matter what, it's gonna be hard, change is hard, but hopefully come up with a solution that meets both those goals.
Ellie.
Actually, I too would like to thank everybody for coming in tonight. And also in just a few short weeks, we are gonna be having filing week for city council positions. I myself am not going to seek re-election, so my seat will be open. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Ellie. Andy.
Can we do a thumbs down to that? Can we do a motion? For that?
So 14 years being on city council, it's always kind of scary coming into a room when, you know, we're talking about a subject and you got everyone wanting to talk. And it's like, okay, how is this gonna go? And it was really good to hear what the citizens had to say. There was no major arguments or anything. And we've covered all sorts of different topics tonight. And I think it was just a good meeting. So well done, everyone.
Danielle.
Yeah, I agree. And Ellie, you're definitely going to be missed. Thank you for all of your years of service for our community. So that's exceptional. Thank you. I'd like to also thank Mr. Lundin. He was great. He showed me the fuel system out of the airport and took me through everything. Really easy stuff I've done before. So it was helpful. And I'm going to go out there probably a few more Saturdays with us to get a little bit more acclimated with, you know, where things are and what to do. It's pretty cut and dry though. So that's good. So if we can get Public Works out there with us, a couple of people from there, that would be even better. That way he can go on vacation sometimes and not have to worry about checking the fuel out there. I think it was great seeing all of the people that were out here, and I hope that next council meeting is the same for the Broadway. Cause I think that sometimes the citizens are automatically going to be on the defensive, which, but all of them, everyone was acting so civilized, and that is just a great thing, because we're not here to decide this or that or the other right here and right now. We want to hear what their thoughts are. And they seemed like they knew that. So that was awesome.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, well, I'll agree the same thing with Andy and Danielle said. It was a very good meeting and very, very productive.
Thanks, Mylan. And for Mayor's report, I attended the National Incident Management System training, NIMS for short. Last week, it was hosted by the Klickitat County Department of Emergency Management. It was a very extensive and informative learning about the various roles and responsibilities that we have in the county in case of emergency. So really like to thank the Department of the Klickitat County Department of Emergency Management, Jeff King and Frank Huey for putting that on, and I really learned a lot from that. Thanks. And that was all I had. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's open public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to make a public comment on any topic?
What an opportunity.
Yeah, any topic, you name it. Anybody on the line for a public comment that has their hand up? No? Okay, hearing no public comment, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Chief Smith.
I said one quick question about the budget committee. Was there gonna be any recommendations for the signs in the flock?
We'll put that,
Is that
we can
next?
put that up on, not the next one, but the one after that. Jen will be online to do our next, maybe so I'll get together with you and we'll get at least the amounts and some literature on it, so we can put it in the council packet, and then we'll add that to it then.
Okay, I just have a meeting set up with some flocks, so if there's any information, then I'll give it tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, one quick question, how much are those where you park them out there to read a word?
Well, the park ones are about 8 to 15,000
Oh.
for the trailers. We
Yeah,
have one-
right.
We have an older trailer, now. Other signs are roughly about 4,000 a piece. I think it was, when I talked to the, budget committee, it'll be about $16,000 for 4 of the signs.
Hmm.
And so they're about 4,000 a piece. And so those do the monitoring, the project, or they give a speed reading. They also take data. So they'll tell you how many cars went by, what their average speed was and all
Okay,
that. So,
okay.
And
Is
the
there,
nice thing about them is they can be moved.
yeah, they're solar, they're mobile, you know, I mean, my main goal is to protect the school zones, to get people to slow down.
Right.
Do that, you know,
Right.
public relations with the public, so they have an idea of, hey, why I'm going, you know, because those signs have like a smiley face, frown face, depending on if they're going, you know, so it's very interactive with the community, and so, but they are mobile. You know, that's something that the council has to decide whether, you know, we want even more of those, you know, I mean, it's nice if everything's the same system, because the
Right,
fact that you
right.
downloading information, the problem we had last time is, you know, the company went out of business, we can't download the data, it goes obsolete, so. Not saying, I mean, the company can go out, but, you know, these are American made, there's actually a rep that I can call at any time to have them
Yeah.
out with the signs, get the support you need with those, so.
So we thought we'd
Good
start
idea.
with the school zone and get, you know, and recommend 4, and then maybe get more later, depending on cost availability, but to see how they work and make sure that. Cause the problem we have with the last one we had is the company that did the data went out of business, and then we had no way of getting the information off the sign, so.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but currently we have no sign that records data that we can review.
No.
We have a few speed, the ones that actually show your speed, they show your speed. Those were all purchased by Public Works, and I believe they're just these.
Yeah, they don't have any data that we can
Right.
download from them.
Right, and that would be helpful. Thanks. Well, we have a motion and a second for adjournment. Any further discussion? All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Meetings
Before
dismissed.
7.
That's not too bad.
7:15.
No, too bad.
Can I just ask who did make the motion to adjourn and who seconded it? Because.
I think Mylan said it to adjourn and I seconded it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
And it
at
took
least
long-
now that's how it is.
Doesn't take long to read.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Not next week, in the beginning, it's not, yes, Mylan, Danielle.
Huh?